You may not get enough leads. You think, how do I get more leads and get them predictably? But most likely, you do get enough leads. The problem is that most of them are just complete garbage. I mean, you spend money on ads and you post content just to get useless leads. So the question should be, why are my leads so unqualified? How do I get more qualified leads? And how do I get the exact leads that I want? And that's what I'm going to be answering in this video. So what's actually happening? Well, the real problem is just that no one gives a fuck. No one cares about your lead magnet. No one wants to opt in to give their name, email, and phone number in exchange for what you have to offer. It's not valuable, it's not unique, it's the same thing they have seen 1,000 times before. It's that simple. And most of you are getting some leads, but a majority of them are completely useless. They are complete garbage. So the problem is not to get leads, that's easy. The problem is getting the right leads, the qualified ones. And the reason again is that your ICP, the qualified ones, they don't give a fuck about your lead magnet. They don't care. And they certainly don't want to give their name, email, and phone number for it. The reason the unqualified ones want it may be because the lead magnet is positioned for them by mistake, and because the unqualified ones are always going to be a majority of your market, and most of them, they have nothing better to do than to opt in for some random lead magnet. That's why you get the unqualified ones. But in order to get the qualified ones, you actually have to get them to, give a fuck. They actually have to care about your lead magnet. And there are 3 things that are causing this problem. The first is your messaging. The second is the lead magnet itself. And the third is your conditioning. So if you can fix these 3 problems, and I'm going to show you how in this video, then you can actually start to get the qualified ones. Then you can actually start to generate qualified leads for your business. But what you need to understand is that this is not a traffic problem. You can go on Meta and buy as much traffic as you want. The problem is never traffic. You can always throw money at things. You can always buy traffic. But just to clarify, the problem may be that your traffic quality is shit, but the problem is never the volume of traffic that you get. The real problem is that you're not able to convert this traffic into leads. That's the real problem. You're not able to attract the right traffic and convert the right traffic. That is always going to be the problem. And the reason most people stay stuck is because the common advice is just to spend more on ads, post more content, just get more leads, and so on. And the common belief is also to go and lower your cost per lead, to go and get cheaper leads so you can get more leads for the same amount of money. And to have a lower cost per lead, well, that may seem, like the obvious choice. Obviously, you want to pay less for your leads, because if you think about it for a second, as I already said, most of your market is going to be completely unqualified. If this is your entire market, only this portion is going to be qualified in your market. All of these are unqualified people. All of these are unqualified people. So what you need to understand is that the unqualified leads are always going to be cheaper than the qualified ones. And that's obvious because there are so many more of them. So obviously they're going to be cheaper. So when you optimize for the lowest cost per lead, you're simultaneously optimizing for the worst leads. You're optimizing to get the unqualified ones. You're purely optimizing for lots of opt-ins. I mean, you have 0 friction in your entire process, and you just end up with a huge list of completely useless leads. The real metric that you should be optimizing for is lead to close rate. Nothing else matters, because as you know, the qualified leads, the perfect ones for your business, well, they are going to close easier, they are going to book easier, they are going to show up to your calls, and so on. So if you optimize for lower cost per lead, well, then your lead to close rate will just be fully fucked. I mean, as long as your cost per qualified booked call is okay, then you don't need to worry about anything else. Don't worry about how much you spend on a lead. Worry about how much it costs to get a qualified person speaking with you on the phone. Because yes, you may pay more for a qualified lead. Your cost per lead may go up, but your lead to close rate will, skyrocket. So it balances out. So let me demonstrate this with some math. So let's say that business A and business B both spend 1K on ads. And let's say that business A has a $10 cost per lead and business B has a $20 cost per lead. So business B has a 2 times higher cost per lead. That means that business A will get 100 leads and business B will get 50 leads. But business A only gets 30% qualified leads, meanwhile business B gets 80% qualified leads. So business A has 30 qualified leads in total. Meanwhile, business B has 40 qualified leads. And let's assume that the lead to booked rate is the same for both businesses for their qualified leads. So let's say both of them convert 7% of their qualified leads into booked calls. Well, business A would get 2 booked calls, and business B would get 3 booked calls. And obviously these are pretty small numbers right now, but we can assume that business A, well, they maybe close 0 out of these 2, and business B maybe closes 1 if they have a 30% close rate. But what you need to realize here is that business B got 50% more booked calls, even though their cost per lead was 2 times higher. And reason is because almost all of their leads are qualified. They get 80% qualified leads. Business A gets only 30% qualified leads. So the CPL doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is your cost per qualified call. Business A has a $500 cost per qualified booked call, and business B has a $333 cost per qualified booked call. Do you see the difference here? You should never look at your cost per lead, and instead you should look at your cost per qualified booked call. And by getting more qualified leads, this is going to happen. So let me show you how to actually do this. As I told you, there are 3 problems why you're not able to get qualified leads. The first is, again, your messaging. The second is your lead magnet. And the third is your conditioning. And let me break all of these 3 down in more detail. So firstly, let's start with your messaging. And you need to understand that your words determine exactly who will opt in. Your messaging is the most important thing to actually attract your exact ICP. So if you have generic messaging, these both examples are, for me, but I will explain it, in broader terms in just a second. But, if I would say, get more clients now, download our free guide to scaling your business, well then, I would attract beginners. I would attract tire kickers. I would maybe get 1 buyer, but most of them would be just complete brokies. Because this messaging is so generic. It's not specific at all, and it's not what my ICP wants. I know this second example, it's not perfect, but it's much, much better. And you will get the point. So you need to have ICP specific messaging. So instead I could say, get more revenue from the leads you already generate. And then I could specify for coaches, consultants doing 20K per month with a close rate problem. And then get your custom audit now. And these will get qualified leads. They will have the budget and they will be ready right now. What you need to understand is that you need to position, angle, and message your lead magnet exactly to your ICP. For the qualified ones, not for the entire market, only for the ones that you actually want. And you need to think, what makes them stand out? What is different about the qualified ones? What do they want that the unqualified ones don't want? What are they more interested in? What do they say? What words do they use? Because if you don't differentiate what they want from the rest of the market, then you will always get the entire market. And most of the market is brokies. Most of the market are the unqualified ones. So you need to figure out their exact pain points, and also what do they actually want? What do they care about? How do they describe their problem and their desire? What words do they use? You should never give them what you want to give them. You should give them what they want. And you should never think what they want, and you should never describe it in a way that you want to describe it. You should never describe it the same way you describe it for yourself. You should always describe it the way they describe it themselves. And the way you figure this out is literally by talking to your ICP. You need to speak to them. You need to understand what are their exact pain points, what are their desires. You need to understand what do they actually want, how do they describe it, what words do they use, and then use that, not what you want, not what you think. And the easiest way to look this up is through your sales call transcripts. Take your 20 previous sales call transcripts, feed that into AI, and let AI extract their pain points, their desires. What do they want? The words they use. And then use that. The more specific you are to their exact pain points, what they are feeling, the better this will work. The better you will attract your exact ICP. So be as specific as you can. And then one more very important thing is clarity over cleverness. It needs to be stupid simple. It needs to be stupid clear what they are getting and what you are providing. If you make it confusing, if you make them think, they will never opt in. You won't get any leads. They will just keep scrolling on, Instagram or Facebook, wherever they saw you. If you can't clearly demonstrate that what you have to offer is extremely valuable and just for them in an easy to understand way, no qualified person will want to opt in. They just think that you're overcomplicating everything or that you don't know what you're talking about. You should never say too much. You should only have one thing driven so deep that they can't unhear it in 3rd grade reading level. So now we get to the lead magnet, which is the most important part. And the standard approach here is to offer a PDF, to offer an ebook, to offer a guide or a checklist, but they are all generic. The problem is that the same thing goes to everyone. Everyone gets the same PDF, the same guide, the same ebook. And this is what most people do. An example could be 7 steps to scale your agency. But again, the problem is that 10,000 people get this exact same PDF, and the only data that you have collected is their name, email, and phone number. And you all know that personalized, tailored, and custom stuff is much more valuable. That's what builds trust and actually converts people. But the problem is that custom value doesn't scale. You can't do custom work for every single person who opts in. That's impossible. You can maybe do custom work for 5 people, but you can't do custom work for 10,000 people for free. And that's the exact reason why most people default to these generic lead magnets. The PDFs, checklists, ebooks, and that's because they require zero effort per lead. But they are also worthless. Nobody cares about them. They don't accomplish anything. No one gives a fuck about them anymore. Everyone offers the same, ebook, guide, PDF. It's the same shit. These, they don't differentiate you at all. Someone maybe downloads it, they skim it, and then they forget about you. But the quiz solves it. The quiz is a way for you to provide custom work, personalized and tailored stuff to people, completely automated. The quiz provides custom stuff to people in a scalable way. It solves the problem of custom work being unscalable. Every single lead who opts in to the quiz gets a result that is customized to their exact situation, to their unique situation. And all of this, it wasn't possible before AI, but now with AI, you can create this AI lead magnet, this AI quiz, and it will create the custom work for every single lead who opts in a fully scalable way. And also with the quiz, you can collect much more detailed information. For example, for me, I can know someone's exact revenue number, their team size, their pain points, their budget, all from the quiz while retaining the same opt-in rate as someone who runs a generic lead magnet. They only ask name, email, and maybe phone number, and I ask all these more personal questions and still have the same opt-in rate as these people. So which would you rather be? And this is exactly how it works. So it starts with the opt-in page. And on the quiz opt-in page, you want to have the quiz survey. This survey is the intake form. And in this intake form, you want to obviously ask them the same standard questions. You want to ask their name, email, and phone number if you want that. But then after that, you want to ask your qualification questions. And this is so important. So what you want to do is you want to disguise your qualification questions as the quiz questions. So that way you know exactly which leads are qualified and which leads are unqualified. You know exactly how many qualified leads you got and how many unqualified leads you got. Previously, with the standard lead magnet, when you only ask name, email, and phone number, you don't know who's qualified. You don't know who's unqualified because you only have their name, email, and phone number. You can't judge based on that. But if you have in your intake form your qualification questions, then you know which days are qualified. And you can't do this with a standard PDF, a standard ebook, because no one would answer these questions. If you opt in for someone's ebook and they ask you, your revenue, for example, well, obviously you wouldn't answer that because why would you? Why would they need your revenue if you just opt in for like a PDF? But with the quiz, the person is actually incentivized to answer these questions because their quiz output, the quiz output right here, it's custom and tailor-made for them based on their answers to these questions. In their mind, the qualification questions are the quiz questions. The lead magnet, the output will be made to them based on their answers to these questions. That's what they believe, and that's how it actually works, but they don't know that the questions are your qualification questions. To them, they are just the quiz questions, the survey questions. But if you are actually smart, then you put your qualification questions in the intake form and disguise them as the quiz, as the survey questions. And because people are so incentivized to answer these questions, because the questions are part of the quiz and part of their output, and because they dictate the lead magnet that they get, we can have as high completion rates on this form with like 10 plus questions as you have on a standard opt-in with only name, email, and phone number. So just think about that for a second. We get more information with no downsides. And the reason all of this is so powerful is because the output, the lead magnet, is so valuable because you get something custom and tailored for your situation. Because think about it. Would you rather buy a suit from the store that's the same for everyone, or would you rather have a suit that's tailored to your exact body measurements? Well, obviously, you would want to have the suit that's custom made for you because it fits perfectly. But if you buy a suit from the store, the measurements, they're the same for everyone. So obviously the tailored suit is more valuable because it's custom made for you. So the lead magnet being so valuable is the whole driver behind this. It's what makes all of this work. And this is a win-win situation. The lead gets something more valuable, you get more leads because it actually attracts them, but you also get much more information from them. And now lastly, we come to the conditioning part. So to all of you that run ads, you know that you have something called the Meta Pixel. And the pixel is what Meta uses to actually track your conversions and to know who your ads should be shown to. So this is how it works. So obviously you have your Meta ads. And if you run a quiz, well then from the ads, people will go to your quiz form, and then again, because you have your qualification questions in the intake form, you will know exactly which leads are qualified and which leads are unqualified. So what you want to do is you want to send all the qualified ones to a VSL page where the pixel is, where the pixel will fire. And then you want to send all the unqualified ones to another page where there is no metapixel. And on the page where you send the qualified ones to, this one, there you want to let them book a call, obviously, because they are qualified. But on the page where you send the unqualified ones, this page right here, well, you want that to be a resource page. For example, it should go to your YouTube channel or to your Instagram, because you don't want to let these unqualified people book a call. But the important thing here is that you split the flow after the quiz. You want to send all the qualified ones and all the unqualified ones to different pages. And on the page where you send the qualified ones, only on that page should the metapixel fire. On the page where the unqualified ones are, your metapixel shouldn't fire. This means that Meta learns only on your qualified leads. That means that Meta will actually find you more people like these. And let me show you what happens if you don't have a quiz. With a standard lead magnet, again, you have the same Meta ads, but the ads go to a standard opt-in form. And in the standard opt-in form, you only ask for their name, email, and phone number. So you can't know who's qualified and who's unqualified. Therefore, every lead will go to the same, let's say, VSL page after the lead magnet. And most likely, you have your metapixel on this page. But what you need to realize is that all your unqualified leads and your qualified leads, they go to the same page. All of them land on this page, and the metapixel fires every single one as a conversion. So this right here is a representation of the leads that you get. All of these white circles are unqualified leads, and all of these black circles, they represent qualified leads. So because you fire your metapixel on every single lead, well, then Meta will think that all of these are equally good. And that means that Meta learns on 11 unqualified leads, all of these white circles right here, and Meta learns on 5 qualified leads. And this means that Meta will bring you more unqualified leads. Just think about it. Because everyone goes to the same page, the pixel fires on everyone, Meta will think all of the conversions are equally as good. It doesn't know that 11 of the conversions, 11 of them are unqualified, and only 5 of them are qualified. So Meta will get more feedback about the unqualified ones, so your ad algorithm will be taught more on unqualified ones than on qualified ones. That means that your ads will be shown to unqualified leads because it's trained on the unqualified ones. So no wonder you get all these unqualified leads. Well, it's because your ads are being shown to unqualified leads. And the only way to solve this is again with the quiz, because with the quiz, you know exactly which leads are qualified and which leads are unqualified. Therefore, you can split the flow and send the qualified ones to one page, this page right here, and the unqualified ones to another page. Therefore, you only train your metapixel right here on the qualified ones. And because of that, your ad algorithm will only be trained on them, and that means that your ads will only be shown to qualified people. You know, if we take the same circles on this page, but here you will have 5 of these black circles right out here, and all of the 11 white circles, well, they will go to this page, and you get the point. We split the flow, but right here, all of these circles go to the same page, and that's why it doesn't work. And the only way to fix this is with the quiz. So right now, if you have any more questions, I will leave my Instagram in the description below, so feel free to shoot me a DM and I will be more than happy to help you out. See you in the next one.